Welcome. This is episode 3 of Red's Amazing Metal Podcast. This is first time on video, by the way. I'm here with Evan Daniele of the solo metal death metal project Dead and Dripping. Thank you for joining me, Evan.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Red. Much appreciated.
All right, good. All right, I'm not gonna bullshit you. I'm not gonna. You looked at the question. I'm not gonna ask you anything crazy. So let's just get right into it. So what's it like working on a death metal solo project, especially when you're making music that requires like a really good amount of technical proficiency? Plus not just for the instruments, but also your vocals. And what made you decide to start doing a project completely solo?
Well, the main impetus for starting the project was at the time, I think it was like 2015 when I first started writing for this project. I was really just getting into a lot more the brutal side of death metal, and I just didn't really know anyone who was really into playing that at the time, who I knew in real life. So I was getting into cryptopsy, and then more so early 2000s stuff like Gorgasm,
Mm.
Cerebral Effusion. Those were a couple early inspirations and favorites. And so, yeah, it just was out of necessity. I had sort of had this idea and wanted to run with it. Um, I had also worked a little bit on another project called Anal Exorcism with with my buddy Jake. He was the vocalist, and I was writing for that as well. And that was a little more. It started out almost like more deathcore kind of stuff. I was kind of into that as a teenager, and it was sort of evolving gradually into more death metal leaning project. So that was almost like some of that stuff was almost a blueprint for what I was doing with Dead and Dripping. So yeah, it was kind of born out of all those different factors.
So I mean, you're in New Jersey, right? It said according to your Metal Archives page.
I'm from New Jersey. I actually live in upstate New York now,
Oh, okay.
just as of like a year ago. But yeah, I was in New Jersey for all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, that actually explains it because, because I figure, there are like tons of people tons of metal guys you can find in the city. Have you seen? Did you see Cryptopsy when they played? I went to one of their shows a few years ago in 2023. Were you at that show?
No, you know what? The last time I saw them was in 2017, I
Oh
think,
wow,
when they were playing None So Vile in full live. That was really cool.
that sounds
But no,
awesome.
I haven't seen them recently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but they actually they come to the city quite a lot. I saw them at they played at Gramercy Theater. I didn't go to that one, but yeah. So
Mhm.
so it seems like it was mostly just born out of necessity. Because I mean, I'm sure it's hard to find a lot of metalheads upstate New York. It's
Yeah,
pretty sparse.
there are some around here actually. One of my friends from this area, I actually met at, or my girlfriend met him at a Dead and Dripping show
Oh,
in Brooklyn, of all places. He turns out to be from the small town I live in now up here, which is kind of a weird coincidence. But so there are some people scattered up here who are even into extreme death metal. But yeah, it's definitely less concentrated.
yeah. So there's kind of like a manpower shortage on that front.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Also, want to ask. So speaking of which, so would you say Dead and Dripping has been more of like a personal passion project compared to your other bands?
Yeah, I would say so. It's pretty unfiltered as far as just kind of having an idea and going for it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say there's no need to compromise with anybody else's tastes or anything like that. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so how would you say working on a band solo compares to working on it with other people? Would you say one is necessarily better, or it depends on the goals? Like if it's like one person's vision, like one person would be better. But if it's like not necessarily that, maybe it would be better to work in a group.
Yeah, a lot of times I think really great stuff can come out of collaboration like that. Where people are coming from kind of different musical backgrounds, maybe with some overlap, but all bringing different perspectives. I think a lot of cool stuff often comes out of that. My experience is mostly having one person with a vision
Hmm.
for my stuff and for the band that I'm in, Sentient Horror. That's more old school, obviously. That's more Matt, the guitarist and vocalist. That's kind of his vision, and obviously we all bring our own nuances to it. But yeah, that's been mostly my personal experience. I've always liked the idea of doing a more collaborative thing, but I also have so many projects that I'm already doing that it's kind of hard. But I will say, in the one band that I play for, Vulnificus,
Hmm.
that debut album is actually going to come out in just about a week, I think.
Yeah.
That was actually a more collaborative experience, which was cool. So I wrote half the songs for that first record, and then Jameson, our other guitar player, he has his own band called Prophecy of Suffering, where that's like really him and his brother. That's their collective vision. But yeah, we got to collaborate on that, and we had been going back and forth online since like 2016
Hmm.
when the first Dead and Dripping demo came out. He had also put an EP out at the time, so we kind of started an online relationship at that point. So it was really cool to have that collaborative experience and work with sort of a like-minded person.
So like, were you like, did you have like a lot of creative input, or were you more like just like just hired as like a hired gun?
On that particular record for Vulnificus, it really was sort of a hybrid creative process. Like our vocalist Eston kind of asked us all individually to be part of it because he liked our respective projects. So he kind of had that idea in mind of us, kind of making our ideas a little more digestible and putting them into like 3 to 5 minute songs for the most part, that were a little bit more about catchy riffs, and stuff like that than like crazy expansive structures and things like that. But yeah, it was he very much wanted it to be like a sort of two guitars with each of us contributing equally to the writing kind of process.
Oh, so like, I mean, that kind of goes into the next question. So like, you've been in bands with four members and two members. So like, how does creating albums work for each? Like, compared to like four. I mean, sure, like two sounds like it'd be a lot more streamlined than working with four. Well, like depending on the dynamics of the band, like if everyone's contributing ideas or if it's just one guy's vision or two guys' vision rather.
Yeah, I think the more visions you try to accommodate, it can be more challenging. Just to sort of meet in a place where everybody's kind of ultimately happy with with the end result, and you kind of have to be okay with relinquishing some level of control at that point. If you really want it to be a truly collaborative process. But like I was saying earlier, a lot of great stuff does come out of that. Um, with this record in particular for Vulnificus, we did come into we had some hiccups because we were doing it a lot of it remotely because we're all pretty spread out. Like I'm in the Northeast. Eston's not too far away, but he's up out in Pittsburgh, so that's a little bit of a ride. And
Four
then
hours at least.
Jameson's all the way out in Colorado, and now our drummer's in like Arizona. So
All over the
it's
world. But hey,
yeah, we're
these
pretty
happen.
much all over the place. So there were definitely a few little hiccups during the recording process, but we kind of adapted to make it all work. So you run into things like that, but yeah, it was definitely a huge contrast to what I'm used to. Obviously, in my own project, I have all to say. Even when I was in, like I mentioned, that band earlier, Anal Exorcism, with my buddy, I was still doing all the writing for that, so it wasn't really too much compromise there. And then in Sentient Horror, like I was saying, it's mostly Matt's vision that we just kind of do our best to complement with our performances, basically. So definitely a lot different than what I was used to.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like you have a lot of projects you're working on. Like you have like a that what's it called again? The what's the one what's coming out next week?
That's Vulnificus, yeah.
Vulnificus. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Like, cause you have that come out next week, and according to Metal Archives, your next album for Dead and Dripping is coming out at the end of November. So you're working on like a lot of stuff at once. Like, how do you balance that?
That's a great question, actually. I really just I practice as much as I can. I really prioritize working on one record primarily at a time, I think. And I'm a procrastinator, so I'll put stuff off until it's like, okay, we really need this from you. And then it's like, all right, I better record that guitar solo this week or whatever.
Yeah.
So sometimes it comes down to just like, I really need a deadline to actually get me into gear and get me to complete something.
Well, so my friend suggested like if you have to like if you don't have any external deadlines, the best thing to do is to like tell someone like, hey, if I don't get this done by tomorrow, I owe you $100. So like that's like another thing you can do if you need
That's a
someone to
pretty good
work.
motivator. And yeah, what I did with this, because I decided to do the artwork myself for the upcoming Dead and Dripping release, and that was like taking me forever.
Oh, so you're an artist too?
Yeah, I draw a bit. Hadn't done it in a really long time, but I just kind of had an idea and ran with it with this one.
Yeah.
Um,
It's very
but yeah, what I
detailed
did
drawing.
for that, but yeah, what I did for that to motivate myself because I was really just kind of dragging my ass through it towards the end there. So I finally, I told Kunal, the head of Transcending Obscurity, that like, all right, I'm gonna have this done by roughly this time. So I really had to get on myself, and of course, I still took longer than that, but it helped, I think, ultimately.
I mean, at least having some sort of external deadlines does help you stay accountable. But in my
Mhm.
experience too, it's not always perfect. But
Yeah,
you get better at it with time.
for
All right.
sure.
So let's move on here. So in other bands you've played in, it seems like you've mostly been on drum duties. But would you say your drums are your most proficient instrument? Like, were that the first instrument you picked up, or you just happened to be assigned them when you joined those bands? And did you start? Oh, well, let's answer that first, and then we'll move on to the next question after that.
Sure. Yeah, drums actually aren't my first instrument. I started on guitar when I was about 9 years old. I started playing guitar, and then I went to a local school of rock. You know, they had all these kind of a franchise thing. They had all these facilities. So in North Jersey, I went to one, and you'd play with other kids and like sort of a cover band, more or less type of situation. That's how I was first exposed to seeing other drummers play, and I was just kind of like really mystified by it. And so I started kind of, listening more to the drums and songs and kind of seeing how people were playing the parts. And then my friend's dad had a drum set, so when I would go hang out with him, I would kind of mess around and try to figure beats out and stuff like that. He gave me a couple pointers to get started. So yeah, guitar was really my first instrument, and then a few years into that, I started to pick up drums. But yeah, it was just kind of happenstance that I ended up playing drums in a lot of bands. I think I'm probably more versatile on the drums than on any of my other instruments. I can kind of be a little more adaptable, whereas on guitar, I kind of have my style, and that's mostly all I can do.
Yeah. I mean, you have I mean, I've listened to those records. You have like really good proficiency with like a multiple instruments, with the drums, with the guitars, and like which does to an extent like extend out to the bass. So like how did you like? Did you just practice all the time with your drums and with your guitar? Like, is that like lived and breathed that, or did you just kind of just picked it up more naturally? Would you say?
I would say I think I picked up drums a little more naturally than guitar. Not necessarily like when it comes to death metal style drumming. Like it took me a really long time to develop any kind of speed,
Hmm.
and I still really consider myself more of like a brute force drummer when it comes to anything like that. Like, I have some technique, but really when it comes to super fast stuff, I'm kind of just bashing away. But yeah, I just kind of got obsessed with it from a really young age, and I think in my formative years, I was just practicing a ton. So, I still try to practice. I practice drums most days of the week. I practice guitar most days of the week. I don't practice bass as much as I should and I would like to, but yeah, I try to keep everything fresh as much as I can.
I mean, you seem to be doing pretty good, but like, do you always feel like there's always room to be learning as far as instruments are concerned? Like, you would like how far to like to your skill ceiling do you think you are? Do you think like you're most of the way there, or like you have no idea where that limit even is?
I feel like in terms of just overall kind of technical proficiency, probably I'm pretty close to it. Really, I try to. The main impetus for me to improve at my instruments is just to communicate an idea that I have. So if I write something that's like, I try to write that's something that's like a little bit, not with out of the realm of possibility, but a little bit above where I feel I'm playing right now,
Mm-hmm.
just to sort of, give myself. That's really the only thing that motivates me to get a little bit better is to want to communicate an idea that I then kind of, tend to get obsessed with, and then I need to improve a little bit if I want to get it across in a way that I feel is like, properly representing it.
I mean, yeah. I mean, my dad always told me like the way to get good at something is to suffer through not being good at it. So like you always have to push yourself further.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like so on that, well, somewhat related. So as far as Dead and Dripping is concerned, how does the songwriting process look like for that? Do the riffs comes first, or like something else might be the skeleton? And like how does that compare to the songwriting process for the other bands you worked in, where there are multiple members?
Yeah, usually the riffs come first. A lot of time when I'm writing guitar parts, I kind of have at least a general idea of the drums in mind. And sometimes I'll even have sort of a bass part in mind as well. I have written drum parts and then written guitar parts for the drums in the past, and that always turns out pretty interesting. So I would like to do that, but I just at my I have a two-bedroom apartment here, so I can't have like a full drum set. I just have like my friend was cool enough to lend me an E kit,
Mm.
so I can play on that, but I'm not really playing as intensely as I would for the most
Yeah,
part
it's
on
a little bit
like an
darker.
an acoustic kit. So yeah, mostly it is writing guitar parts first, and then writing the rest to that. Um, and then yeah, in my other projects, I mean, Vulnificus was basically like that too. I played drums on this first record that's about to come out. So again, as I was writing riffs, I had some ideas of like, here's what I would do on drums. Um, but yeah, it was interesting also having to write drum parts to Jameson, the other guitar player, to his riffs,
Hmm.
because he just, even though we have a similar kind of ethos when it comes to playing death metal, he just has like it comes out a very different way the way he plays. So we both are kind of into very organic kind of playing, organic production, trying to play as much as possible all in one cohesive take and things like that. So our approach in that way is similar. But in terms of the way the actual riffs sound is very different. So it was
Yeah.
cool to, kind of have to write to something totally different than I'm used to.
Totally. And like you mentioned like it's like so like there are other people who like live in your little complex over there. You said yeah. So like I'm sure drumming is definitely like makes it a lot harder. But like how about doing vocals? Do you like how do you record vocals? Do you like record them in your closet? Because I was always told if you have to record something, the best way to do it is in your closet if you don't have like a professional sound studio.
For vocals, really, I just record them in my bedroom for the most part. I was working on this project when I still lived with my parents too. So I would record back there at my mom's house. Actually, I still record guitars there because I have my half stack. I keep it down there in Jersey. And yeah, for vocals, no, I just record in my bedroom for the most part. My vocals actually aren't super loud. Um, I don't project my voice all that much, so it's maybe negates the need for something that's going to sound that tight. But yeah, for me, I've always had at least decent results, just kind of recording in whatever room I'm in.
Yeah. All right. Well, at least you don't wake up the neighbors with that. so
Yeah, exactly.
So, what are the main themes with that you like to explore on your albums? Like, I'm looking at like just looking at the titles of your songs. They're like extremely like intricate and like verbose, sort of like there's like a hint of like intellectualism. It's like Metal Archive says like your themes are like gore and corpses, but like I think your lyrics convey a bit more subtlety than that. So, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I think on the first demo, that was definitely gore and corpses. That was like I had just listened to Devourment for the first time, and I was like, "Oh, this is great!" And so I wanted to do, I wanted to do the next Baby Killer, basically, lyrically anyway. But then I kind of just moved on to doing stuff that was more interesting to me personally and less inspired by other bands, I guess. Um, on the first record, I was just kind of throwing things out there based on what the song titles made me think of, and trying to just kind of leave things up to interpretation for the most part. There was definitely elements of like religion and mythology and things like that, and our relationship to them throughout human history, but nothing too specific. And really, same thing on the second record. Then on the third and this upcoming one, which I think will be a bit more obvious, it's really like cosmic horror influenced. So like the writings of like H.P. Lovecraft and Thomas Ligotti. I mean, you can probably tell by the song titles, like you said, they're super verbose. It's like you might find any of those as a sentence in a Lovecraft story.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
basically
What's
that
that?
type of wording.
Yeah, definitely. So like, I mean, is there like a bit of like humor to that, or like that just like it just is there like a purpose to that, like to have that sort of like verbosity?
Yeah, to me, it feels very fitting of the sort of maddening style that I'm kind of going for, and that's what cosmic horror is to me. It's sort of like a real maddening, like hard to comprehend, and you can't quite place it. It's more about the vibe of it than like being really concrete. As descriptive as the titles might be, it's like
Yeah.
doesn't point to any one thing necessarily a lot of the time. It's more of a vague tapestry of weird ideas.
Yeah. All right. Well, I like that. So like, it actually does kind of lead me somewhat to. I mean, I think you've already kind of answered this. Because like, how much of an influence was Cryptopsy on your sound? You're wearing a Cryptopsy shirt right now. Because like, I think this might be just me, but I think you've taken some cues from Lord Worm's lyricism. Because like, I think he's probably in terms of death metal. I mean, J Dog would disagree, but I think Lord Worm is the greatest lyricist in all of death metal that I've come across so far. So like, how much of an influence was Lord Worm's sort of like intellectual atmosphere in his songs like an influence on yours? I mean, you
I would
took
say that
Blood
was
Dripping from that song on None So Vile.
yeah, yeah. That was obviously an homage to Cryptopsy too. Um, yeah, I would say a pretty significant influence. Especially like you're saying, that sort of dark sense of humor. That was maybe more of a conscious thing on the demo than it has been on the more recent albums. I think it, like you were saying, sort of that really verbose song titles and everything that has a kind of humor within itself. Um, but yeah, I would say just kind of more generally, yeah, like you're saying, the sort of really poetic sort of way that he approaches lyrics, and it's really, I don't know, he's a really unique lyricist and one of my favorites for sure too. Um, yeah, I think that influence has gotten less conscious over time, but I think it was there from the beginning, so it's sort of evolved kind of with that in its roots too.
Yeah, totally. All right. So So, I mean, speaking of influences, I mean, I think you've already kind of answered this before. So, what other bands were influences on Dead and Dripping, either in death metal or not? I mean, you've mentioned Devourment and stuff like that, but like other influences could be in death metal, or could be just not in death metal. Maybe even not even in extreme metal or metal at all. What would you say are up there?
Yeah, I think. Well, Cryptopsy, obviously, like we were just mentioning, that's baked into the sound. They're more, especially the sort of old school lens of brutality. I like to make sure that that's part of it. So it's the stuff doesn't sound, it sounds modern and old school kind of melded together. Like I was saying earlier, cerebral effusion was one of the really big influences when I was first starting the project, and I think that elements of their sound still come through here and there. Um, let's see who else besides the obvious ones. I think Meshuggah has actually been a pretty big influence, which you
In terms of
don't necessarily hear directly.
was it like in terms of like the complexity? Was that an influence?
Some of the rhythmic ideas of like sort of where the drums kind of stay in 4/4, where the guitar is doing something that's in a different time signature. That sort of polymetric stuff, the interplay between the instruments, that was definitely Tool even was sort of an influence in that way early on for me.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Um,
prog. I mean, not gonna say more technical elements in your sound.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could even say there's progressive elements. Yeah, those were definitely some maybe less obvious influences that just have been sort of in my
They just blend through.
musical DNA or whatever since I was like a teenager. So that sort of always shows through in any project.
So actually that does make me want to ask you. So like, is this like you say like this is like this is like, would you say this is like sort of like an artistic expression that you've held on for a while, or is this just something that just kind of resulted as you learning more about music, playing in bands, and this is just a lot of ideas that you came up with, and you feel like this Dead and Dripping is probably like a great way of expressing that, if that makes any
Yeah, I would
sense.
say it's a bit of both, especially as it goes on and evolves to become more its own thing and less attached to the influences that I kind of started on. Even though I still try to represent that in the sound, I think even each album is kind of its own thing in a certain way. So yeah, I would say it's both of those things for sure.
All right. Okay. Oh yeah. Also, I forgot to ask. So, like, would you say you listen to a lot of slam metal? Because I remember. Would you say that's a big influence on you, or maybe not? Well, besides some other bands.
I think more so early on
Hmm.
with that as well. I don't really listen to it that much anymore. Here and there, I'll throw on whatever comes out, whatever in the slam realm, and it's usually pretty fun to listen to at least once through, and then I get kind of tired of it after 6 minutes or so of hearing the same kind of riff over and
Yeah.
over.
I mean, I remember I was told once that like all of slam is just based off that one suffocation riff, and I like oh, that can't be true, and I'm like, okay, it is actually true.
It's pretty true. Yeah, that plus early devourment, but without the blast. It's really
Yeah.
all just the slow, so yeah, I mean, it can be fun, here and there,
Mhm.
but it gets pretty tired pretty quickly for me.
I mean, just like
Um,
some funny bullshit you put on every now and again.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Almost like it's almost the same way I would listen to something like 3 6 Mafia,
Hmm.
where it's like, all right, this is a lot of fun for 12 minutes or so. It's just ignorant as hell, fun to listen to, and then it's like, all right, I need something a little different.
Maybe something to stimulate the cogs in the head a little bit more than just this.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
exactly.
nothing. I mean, the way I see it, there's nothing wrong with consuming dumb stuff, but as long as you understand it's dumb.
Yeah, you got to be aware of that. Exactly.
Alright. So that does. I mean, you've already sort of hinted at this earlier, but like, do you ever perform live, and do you ever open for some of the bigger bands when they've been in New York or like whatever local band you're in, or in your area? I mean.
Yeah, we've played live a couple times now, so I'm looking to get more shows on the books for the coming year. We did our first show was in Philly. Shout out to Justin from Charcuterie,
Ooh.
Gore Grind band. He had us out there play at Bonks. That was pretty cool. That was actually a really good turnout for a first show, and everyone stuck around the whole time, which was awesome. And then we played in Brooklyn at Lucky 13. We opened up for Anal Stab Wound, Nikhil's project. So he did double duty. He played he plays drums for Dead and Dripping live,
Oh god, that sounds
and then
exhausting.
yeah, especially playing his material is absolutely insane. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Yeah.
it's really mind-boggling stuff.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that was their live debut that we played at also, and that was a great show. Really, a ton of people turned out to that one. So yeah, hoping to definitely get some more of those. We haven't done any opening gigs for bigger bands yet. We'll see what's down the line. But yeah, the next thing I'm trying to get together is a album release show for the upcoming
Oh,
record.
that'd be
So
good.
hopefully that will be coming up soon.
So like, so when you did that tour, was it just the one in Philadelphia? There was no other shows beyond that.
Yeah, that was just a one off show that we went down to Philly for.
But did you enjoy doing it? Like, I'm sure you would definitely be open to doing it again if you had the chance.
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, I like Philly a lot. I've played there in a few different venues with my other projects too, and it's always pretty cool. There's a couple cool venues there. Milk Boy is cool. Kung Fu Necktie is really cool. That we just played there with Sentient Horror. So yeah, I'd like to get into some more of those venues too. And yeah, it's a cool place to play.
Yeah, because like especially with I mean the thing with like touring. I mean you'd probably only be mostly in the Northeast, but like I heard like a big pain in the ass when it comes to touring with smaller bands that you kind of have like you have to do all your own driving and you got to set up all your own shit and like that can be like kind of a pain in the ass. But like if it's not like you're living and you do it every now and again, you can probably like tolerate doing that. So
Yeah, definitely. We actually did a tour with Sentient Horror, basically just about a year ago now, where we went up north into Canada a little bit. We went out to the Midwest to like Chicago, and Milwaukee in those areas. And yeah, that we did 11 dates, so it was pretty manageable. We split driving duties. We brought our own backline for the most part, besides guitar cabinets, I think. So we brought a lot of our own stuff. It was, it's a bit of a slog at times. We because we played 11 nights in a row, but it was a blast.
yeah,
Ultimately,
yeah. I mean
it's worth it.
it breaks the normal routine, and plus you get to see the part of the country you've never been to, and you see more people. So that's always a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the best way to promote the project always.
Always have more. Would you find it's been like fairly effective so far, or like you haven't really seen like you haven't really tested it out that much yet?
Yeah, I think that's the most effective thing for sure. With Dead and Dripping, obviously we've only done a couple shows, but it did, even just those couples seem to garner a lot more interest than just posting anything online. I mean, we sold a good amount of merch, more than I was prepared with actually. So people were very, very supportive. And yeah, it was a great experience so far. So I'm definitely hoping to expand our live performances this year and get out to some areas we haven't been to.
Yeah, that's the benefit of metal. It breeds loyalty like no other genre. So if you
Yeah,
like unlike other stuff like you say, oh, check this out, most people aren't going to check it out. With metal, people are always looking for new bands, so you'll definitely have that. Yeah,
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 and that word of mouth is huge too. Because if your friend whose opinions you trust tells you to check something out, you're 9,000 more times more likely to do it than if you just see it on the internet.
yeah, totally. So like, I want to move on to your new album. So you've released a few singles recently. You want to quickly discuss them, and or do you have any anticipations for the next album?
Yeah, I'm hoping. This is the second one on transcending obscurity. Kunal's been awesome to work with so far. On this one, he always gives me full creative control, but on this one, I also did the artwork, obviously. So he encouraged me to contribute to the layout also, which was really cool. So I got to work on that too. So yeah, I'm excited to see people are pretty positive about it so far. So I'm excited to see how that all turns out. I'm excited to see how the merch comes out because he always does a really great job printing everything, and he does a whole array of different things from coffee mugs to sweatpants and tote bags. So
He's got the whole shebang,
always,
isn't he?
yeah, it's always cool to see all that stuff. But yeah, I think it's very exciting.
Yeah, seems like you got like I mean, so I actually want to ask, would you have so much crap worry like though as far as music is concerned? Would you say like you are kind of focused on long term goals, or you're so busy in terms of music? Would you say you're so busy with all the stuff you're focusing on right now, like that hasn't really like crossed your mind much, or like you do have some vision for what you want to do for the future as far as music is concerned?
Yeah, I definitely have some long term views. I especially for Dead and Dripping, I kind of have a lot of backlogged stuff that I've written, so I always kind of have the next few records in mind, and sort of blueprinted for the most part. The guitar parts are mostly written and stuff like that. So yeah, I have kind of a vision for that, a vision for what we can do live moving forward, sort of next steps. So yeah, I wouldn't say I have everything all mapped out, but I have sort of a loose vision of what I'd like to do and what I think is plausible. and we'll see how that comes together.
Yeah. So like, is this something that like, well, do you think that you'll always be doing death metal, or like you're just like you'll just see how it plays out? Like maybe one day you'll want to do something a bit more. Maybe you'll move towards maybe traditional metal, or maybe even black metal, or maybe some maybe like melodic death metal if you wish to go into that area.
Yeah, interesting. You'd bring that up because I actually kind of just started a new project that's sort of more in the realm of doom metal.
Oh,
I've been getting really into that over the past year or so. So yeah, I just finished recording all the instrumentals for that for the first record. So I'm gonna, I don't want to say too much too soon. I'm gonna probably look around, see if I can find some label support for that.
uh,
But
death
yeah,
doom or death doom or traditional doom?
just doom. Yeah, I'm trying to keep death metal out of that one because I want to just really try something a little bit different.
Mm.
I do have another death doom project I'm working on with my brother, so that's not another solo project, but yeah, that one we have a 2 song demo recorded for. I just have to finish that up, and get that out there to kind of formally establish the project. So that hopefully within this next year will be out too.
Hmm.
So yeah, a couple kind of new ventures there.
So like, what kind of just if you don't mind me asking, so like, what kind of doom metal is this? Is it gonna be like, is it like old school Black Sabbath, or maybe like Candlemass, or maybe like something more modern, or maybe like Count Raven, which is very Black Sabbathy?
Sort of a mix. I would say my main inspirations for the project are like early High on Fire, which
Mm.
not properly doom per se, but like Matt Pike's riffing is very kind of steeped in that. The band Yob also
Uh huh.
very big influence on the project. Um, there's some a lot more melodic stuff. There's even some like a little bit of Pantera influence here and there. That's
Pantera.
kind of one of my favorite bands of all time. Love
Oh.
Dimebag's riffing, so there's even a little bit of that mixed in. There's some sludginess to it, some melody to it. So it's
Acid
it's
bath.
a bit of a mixed bag.
There's like some acid bath in there.
A little bit, I would say a little bit, yeah.
Yeah. So like, so you said so like your brother's also really into metal. You implied you said earlier.
Yeah. He's a drummer. Not traditionally like a death metal drummer per se. He was like he started in like marching band in high school and ended up playing like rock jazz on a full kit. So this is kind of his first foray into something. He's been very into brutal death metal for the last like 10 years or so.
Oh, okay.
This is less a brutal project and more of a weird, dissonant death doom kind of thing. So yeah, it's kind of his first foray into it on drums.
Hmm. Oh, okay. Well, so like, so he didn't necessarily like grow up with it in the same way you did. It's just kind of like this is a relatively recent thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, better late than never, though.
Mhm. Yeah, he's doing great with it so far.
All right. Well, now I think that's mostly the main question. So let's move on to the miscellaneous questions. So,
Sure.
do you listen to like a lot of genres of metal, or do you mostly stick with death metal and adjacent stuff?
Yeah, I came up listening to like a lot of thrash. That was kind of my entry point. Thrash and like, Pantera type stuff. Yeah. Awesome. But really, even when I was first getting into it, it's more like, big four, like, super mainstream, Metallica, Slayer. I really never listened to Megadeth or Anthrax, actually. It was all Metallica and Slayer.
Mm.
Um, and then, from there got into Cannibal Corpse, and it kind of progressed from there. Yeah, now I mostly listen to death metal. I listen to some black metal here and there. I like more like weird dissonant stuff, like Imperial Triumphant or like Death Spell Omega.
Oh,
Sort of weird unhinged stuff like that.
yeah,
And doom metal, as I mentioned, that's been sort of a recent interest of mine too.
yeah. All right. So like, okay. So like, and back somewhat related. So here's a classic music question I like to ask metalheads. Everyone knows the question of you have to bring 3 albums to a desert island, but
Yeah.
here's the twist: you cannot bring anything that is either metal or metal adjacent. So you can't bring any metal, punk, or hard rock or anything like that. You can bring rock, but it can't be like heavy rock. So which albums are you bringing?
Okay, I think. All right. First one I'm going to bring, which is totally outside of that realm, would be the first Wu Tang album,
Oh, okay.
36 Chambers. Yeah, one of my all-time favorites. Let's see. I would go with the first Mars Volta record,
Mm,
"The Loust in the Comatorium."
that's actually a decent one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that has some like the drumming's pretty insane, but I definitely wouldn't call it metal adjacent. More in the prog realm. Let's see. I would go with L.A. Woman by The Doors for my
I
third
think
one.
I've listened to it once when I was younger, where my dad had it on in the background or something.
Yeah, yeah, that was always my dad's favorite band, and I've always loved The Doors as well. Very much in the classic rock realm, but a bit more psychedelic than a lot of the bands of their time.
Yeah. All right. So also somewhat related. What are your favorite bands, either influences or not, and any deeper cut bands you think people ought to check out?
I think, like I mentioned earlier, probably Meshuggah would be the
Mm-hmm.
band that's influenced me the most. That may not be super obvious. Um, any deeper cut bands? I would say I'll give a shout out to some of my, you know, guys that I play with.
Go ahead.
Prophecy of Suffering, excellent band that people ought to check out if you like brutal death metal in the more old school vein. Putrescent Seepage, another awesome one.
Mm-hmm.
Brutal death metal, but it feels like they got a lot of cryptopsy vibes in there where it's just really, really crazy shit. Great riffs though, still, and just like real nasty but catchy at the same time. Of course, Anal Stab Wound. Shout out to Nikhil and all his bandmates. He's now playing live. I got to see them live when we played with them, and it was incredible. It was amazing. Um, and yeah, and also in the death metal realm, I would give a shout out to Iniquitous Deeds,
Mm-hmm.
who, people within the scene know about them, but I feel like they only put out one album like 11 years ago, so they've kind of become underappreciated. But I think they really kind of changed the genre for a lot of people who were making music around that time, and sort of redefine what's possible there.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it'd be one of those bands where, like, the one album is like just a total masterpiece, and you don't think they should make anything else after that, or like you think you would kind of like to see more from them?
You know what? I think that album will always stand by itself, but I believe they have been working on a new record, and I am excited to hear it. But I think regardless of how that comes out, their first one will always be like one of my all-time favorites.
Totally. All right. So next one. So any advice for people interested in starting out a metal band?
Don't no, no, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, we already have 100,000. No need to make
Yeah,
more.
there's enough of them.
Yeah.
No, but I would say, I would say be as authentic as you can.
Mm-hmm.
Also be okay with just sucking at first, because I think you kind of need to get over that hump. And if you're gonna wait forever to release something, it doesn't work the same way as recording something, because then you can kind of reflect back on it, realize what you like about it, what you think you could change and improve about it. So I would say even if you're not sure about it, just put it out there. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, no one's gonna really hate on it if there's like five people watching at a certain point. You know what I mean? People don't start hating on stuff until people are really raving about it on a large scale. So pretty much no one's gonna bother saying anything negative. Most likely, just no one will care. I've experienced that many times,
Mm-hmm.
and that's fine. Because then eventually, if you get to a point where you're developing your creativity enough and really hitting on something interesting, people will start to care, and then you'll go like, oh, "Holy shit! Like
Mm-hmm.
people actually are caring about this."
Yeah, in a
That's
sense, I
pretty
mean,
cool.
yeah, a lack of response in a way is still a response.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, true.
Anyway,
But yeah, I would say,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
oh yeah, no, I would just say don't be afraid to just kind of put your stuff out there and see what happens, and keep it authentic.
What the? All right. Sorry about that. The thing just glitched out on us, but we should be good now. I'll have to edit this together in post. All right. So anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, I think I was just saying, if you're just starting out, don't be afraid to kind of put your stuff out there, and don't compromise your vision to base it on what other bands are doing necessarily. Kind of just put it out there, see what happens, and let it kind of evolve from there.
Definitely. And yeah, the best way to learn is just get feedback from others. Yeah. There. So let's see. What are your musical plans for the near and distant future? I mean, you already got two releases coming up within the next few months, but like what's in like the relative near future and the more distant future? Like what's within the next year or so? What do you think?
Yeah, within the next year, I'm gonna start working on recording the next Den Dripping record. And for that one, I'm planning on having Nikhil on drums and TJ on bass. They play with me live.
Yeah.
So kind of fleshing it out into more of a full band rather than just a solo project. Those guys both complement the music perfectly. So it's kind of going to be a relief for me really to only have to worry about guitar and vocals. Yeah, so we're gonna start working on that one. I'm gonna do the art for that one as well. and then hopefully have the first release for the other kind of more doom project I was telling you about. That's hoping to get that out in the coming year of 2026. And also the project I was mentioning, the Death Doom project that I have the demo for, that'll hopefully be coming out as well. Those are the main things. Still playing live with Sentient Horror. We shoot for like a weekender every month. So I think we'll probably be sticking with that rough schedule there, and just really hoping to get some more live stuff going with Dead and Dripping. I suck at reaching out to promoters and venues, so I kind of just need to get better with that.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of have that experience when I try getting people on my podcast. I get a lot of like get left on red. Like it does sting a little bit, especially if I really like the band. But it's just par for the course. So I get used to it though. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only way is to just get used to the rejection of it, I guess. Yeah, that's I'm in the same boat. I gotta
Yeah.
just eat it.
So like those bands, like those people, you're bringing other people onto your bands, but like you're still gonna have like pretty much total artistic control, right?
Yeah, like I was mentioning, I've pretty much written everything already. So I'm pretty much going to give them control over their parts, because I think they can really they get the music kind of inherently. Yeah, so I think they can really kind of add to it. And I just kind of trust them from having played with them and having heard their creative projects as well. They clearly really get the style and what I'm going for, and the three of us have like a lot of overlap and also some differences, which is cool. So they bring something different while still really doing justice and complementing the music.
All right, all right, cool. And so, any closing words before we finish out this interview?
I think that's about all I have to say. Thank you very much for having me. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Evan.
the
Thank you for
interview.
being my. This would be my third guest, actually, technically fourth, since the last interview I did, I interviewed two people at once. But Evan, you've been great. Thank you for joining me on the episode 3 of Red's amazing metal podcast. I still have not decided on a name yet. All right, all right. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks, Red.
All right. All right.